print online venture for the release of non-fiction books. I'm Monami Gogoi, and today we have with us Mr. Ashish Kundra, an IAS officer who is currently working with the Delhi government as the principal secretary. He's also the author of the book A Resurgent Northeast, Narratives of Change, a HarperCollins publication that we are going to discuss today. Mr. Kundra, congratulations on your new book.
Thank you very much.
This is a copy of the book. It was a captivating read, absolutely gripping from the very first word to the last page. I wanted to ask you that in the book you have called this a tribute to the amazing grace of the forgotten people. To an average reader like me, it felt like an earnest letter to the people in Lytton's Delhi, where you talk about the potential of the region, the gap between what is on paper and the reality that you saw on the ground, especially in the chapter, The Bridge to the Far East. So my question would be, what is the reason you decided to write the book? What was that particular moment you thought that you wanted to share your experience in the form of a book?
See, I have served in the Northeast in two spells, and they were like 15 years apart. And I have lived through the transformation which has happened in the last 7-8 years. And I saw a change not just in the infrastructure, the opportunity, the energy, but also the spirit of enterprise, which now subsumes the entire Northeast. And I thought that this is a story which deserves to be shared, not just for the people of the Northeast, but much more for the rest of the world. Because for a very long time, Northeast has lived in the shadows of the mainland. And I think now is the time for the Northeast to emerge out of the shadows and share their potential and promise with the rest of the country.
So when I read the book, it was a mixture of, immense hope in chapters like The Bridge to the Far East, where you talk about how it can, if the Act East policy is implemented and the future that the region can see and witness. But at the same time, the reality on the ground, it causes you despair. And as somebody from the region, you see that whatever you have written, on the ground, it's so much more worse. So as a writer, was it very challenging for you to write the book? And what was your experience going on?
In as far as the bridge to the Far East is concerned, I have traveled to the remotest borders of the Northeast. Whether it be the Myanmar border at Zokhata, whether it be the Tibetan border in Arunachal, and the Bangladesh border in Mizoram. So evidently there is a history of confluence of people, of ideas, of culture and trade, and that informality of exchange which is there is the reality of the Northeast. However, I think that the hope and the policy framework of the government of India, in a manner of speaking, envisages far more. It envisages a linkage which connects it to the Southeast Asian region. And there I try to draw a parallel with the connectivity of Yunnan with Myanmar, and how we can draw a lesson out of that. And perhaps the promise of trade can actually become a reality.
So do you have any particular favorite from the book, or something that you want to tell the readers not to miss out on?
I think it will depend on the interest of the reader. For me, it is a narrative. It's a narrative which draws from my own personal experience as an individual, as a citizen of this nation, and as an administrator who has worked in that region. But it is also based on conversations and the lived reality of the people of the Northeast. And to that extent, there are different aspects to it. There is a conversation about the potential of tourism, the potential of trade, the great opportunity which lies in horticulture, the spirit of enterprise, which is right now so evident in the Northeast, the aspect about the women of the region, there's a whole chapter on which I've called the better half of Northeast, and that gives the both sides of.
Yeah, you have not sugar-coated about the region.
Yes, yes. So I think I've tried to give a balanced account. It is not trying to say I'm not try to paint it with a rose tinted kind of brush, but I've said that it has left behind the painful past. That is a definite reality. It is aspirational. That is a definite reality. It is on the right track. That is a definite reality. And now the elements are all in place for a new Northeast to emerge for the rest of the country to see.
So, like in the chapter Rivers That Light, you talk about the significance of the forest cover and to the importance of maintaining the ecological balance in the backdrop of the hydroelectric projects that are under construction in the region. Dams and conservation, it's a paradox. So, what is the way forward, or what would be the way to achieve that equilibrium?
See, whenever we talk about development in a fragile ecology such as Northeast, one has to be mindful of the surroundings in which we work. There is no doubt about it. At the same time, there is a potential which is waiting to be harnessed. The rivers of the Northeast can light up the whole of the country. That is the hydropower potential of that region. And it has kind of waited for far too long. And in fact, the fury of the rivers is felt the most, perhaps in Assam, every year. And that is why there is a need to create some kind of mechanism of upstream hydroelectric projects which have storage and which can be regulated. But at the same time, what I've said is that we should not go on a path of reckless development of hydroelectric projects. We should be mindful of ecology, take people along, because all hydroelectric projects also involve some degree of displacement. And I think that is precisely the approach which I have quoted the Chief Minister of Arunachal, Mr. Khandu. He has also said that whatever we do in this field, we cannot ignore the aspiration of the people, and we will take them along and find the right balance between the need for economic development, the need for conserving ecology, and also ensuring the growth and prosperity of the people of that region.
Right. So, in chapters like education versus enterprise and the sporting nation, it's like a collection of feel-good stories. It makes the reader know about the potential and about the youth, and like the term you said, ag- agripreneurs, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But you have also written at length about the dismal healthcare infrastructure that the region faces. But in the midst of it all, the issue of corruption and the menace of drugs, you haven't gone at length to like elaborate on those aspects. Was it like something very deliberate, or what was the thought process behind that?
No, actually, there is a whole chapter on the challenge of governance, in which I have talked about the gap in capacities of the governance structures. Number one, I have talked about the challenge of dealing with the history and legacy of corruption, and how there is visible change even on that front, though it is slow. There is a fact that it shares a large international border, and therefore it is, and those borders are porous, and therefore it is naturally a transit for drugs and arms smuggling at times. So that is why, from the standpoint of the policymakers in the center, there are two sides to the Northeast which are seen. One is the security architecture, which is equally important because it is an area which is a frontier area, surrounded like cul-de-sac. It is from all sides, it is surrounded by international border.
Mhm.
At the same time, the Ministry of External Affairs and the Commerce Ministry would like to see trade flourish across the border. So the point which I have tried to make is that yes, there are gaps in capacities of governance. And for example, there are institutions such as the Northeastern Council, which perhaps time has come to reinvent them. Just like Planning Commission was reinvented and NITI Aayog has, in a way, and in fact, Honorable Prime Minister has on record at several occasions said this, that there is a need to take a fresh look at the Northeastern Council, because that can become a regional repository of knowledge, of capacities, of transformation, and infrastructure planning. So perhaps whatever is the deficit in capacities individually amongst the states can be overcome through a regional body which is adequately equipped.
Mhm. So how much time did it take you to write the book? And I saw there's an exhaustive list of references, and the bibliography went on and on. So how much time did you need to come up with this book?
Actually, I started writing it, sometime while in my last tenure while I was in Mizoram. And I was by myself, and I would have weekends which were completely free. I had opportunity to talk to people, and of course I had just moved from Arunachal, so I carried memories and experiences from Arunachal which were fresh. So a lot of the writing stuff started happening in Mizoram. Then I moved to Delhi, and I think the COVID period also kind of gave me an opportunity to reflect uh, and think and also do some research. And finally, I think I submitted the manuscript to the publishers, and here it is.
Right. So, uh, I noticed that you had this extensive interviews with a lot of people whom you have like mentioned in the book. Um, in terms of the agriculture and the horticulture development in the region, uh, is it something that you noticed this during your second tenure when you went to the Northeast?
Actually, the horticulture potential particularly struck me while I was in Arunachal. For example, there's a place called Zero in Arunachal, which is known for its kiwi. And in one of the chapters, I mentioned about this lady entrepreneur who's now producing kiwi wine, and she is a very courageous woman. And her story about how agro processing is the way forward for remote places in the Northeast, because these are perishable commodities, and traveling long distances won't work. Similarly, when you go to the eastern part of Arunachal, there's a place called Dambuk, and the oranges of Dambuk are far more delicious than any oranges that you get anywhere in the country. Even Nagpur oranges are pale before them. And similarly, the exotic varieties of let us say flowers, which I saw in Mizoram. They also grow they have this passion fruit, and they have other kinds of dragon fruit and all these things, which are treated as exotic fruits in the mainland. They're very expensive. Avocado in Nagaland. So, and they are most delicious because they are organic. So that got me thinking, and then I started to dig more. And then, of course, Sikkim it was a pioneer in the organic revolution. And so I have anchored the agricultural story in Sikkim, but then there are stories of Assam, there are stories of Manipur, there are stories of Arunachal, and also the stories of Meghalaya. So it's the whole basket which makes it very fascinating.
Right, right. Also, the chapter about the better half of the Northeast. Uh, I mean, how did you come to terms, or what was the initial reaction when you realized there were all these, like, layers of complexities in
Yeah,
the.
so as you read the chapter, and I would have kind of appreciated when I went there. A Punjabi North Indian going to the Northeast. In my first tenure in Mizoram, when I went to the Secretariat is full of ladies. It's and the market is full of ladies. It's all run by ladies. So it's a bit of it boggles your mind that what's going on. And women are very enterprising. They are very, it looks like they are totally economically empowered and right there. And then there are stories about Meghalaya, about the Khasi women and the matrilineal society, and so on and so forth. But when you dig deeper, there is a very deep underlying patriarchy which comes forward. So while I think economically there's no doubt that the participation rate of women is far higher perhaps than anywhere in the country, they are mobile because I think they bring money on the table. So I think it's a very pragmatic kind of way of looking at things. But then there are other sides to it. For example, inheritance of property, for example, polygamy, for example, so many other things, the challenges of, and then there's the glass ceiling of politics, and there's no representation of women in the pulpit. Uh, I think recently, in fact, very interestingly, in the Nagaland elections,
Yeah, the first lady.
it has been this jinx has been broken, and there are two women legislator now minister, which is a very heartening development, and I think quite a coincidence. In fact, one of the legislators I had met her and interviewed her, Hekani, and I'm so happy that she's finally realized her dreams.
Right, right. Also, sir, you've talked about the sports potential and all the uh, like the hopeful stories coming out of Mizoram and Manipur in particular. How did you go about approaching that particular chapter?
See, I think again, as a region, this is one place where sports comes naturally to the people. People are hardy, they are really sturdy, and they have a flair for sports. Whether it is soccer, whether it is badminton. In Mizoram, I mentioned in the book that you go to any village, uh, the church is one building which is absolutely perfect, and then is the stadium. So while the houses and all might be in a bad shape, but these are two buildings which stand out, which just demonstrates the passion for sports. So everybody after office hours, whether it's the chief minister or the chief secretary or the peon who's working in the office, all of them will kind of play badminton. So then I started kind of, again roaming around and figuring out how this has kind of evolved. And then Manipur, of course, has got very strong traditions of boxing and soccer and so on. And I think the kind of investment which has gone in this region in recent times, in both in terms of infrastructure and also drawing out talent and nurturing them for the national level. At one point, I have mentioned that Northeast used to make headlines in national newspaper for all the wrong reasons. There's a bomb blast, there's an earthquake, there are floods, nothing more. But if there is somebody who wins a gold medal in the international arena, that is a matter of pride, not just for that tribe or the district or the state, but for the whole region. So Mary Kom is as much a Manipur as she is for the whole of Northeast.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a symbol of pride. Sports is a symbol of pride for the region, as it is a source of redemption for something which had been denied to them for such a long time.
Right, right. Uh, so my final question would be that uh, you have charted all these positive stories and how far the region has come in these past few decades, but there are still stark realities of infrastructural gap, which you say is like the yawning gap between what could be and what it is on the ground. Uh, Things like a distance from Dimapur to eastern Nagaland, like Tuensang would be a 10-hour road journey, and with patches like of road completely not visible, like highways where there are no traces of road. But then, do you think there would come a time where all these gaps and all these leakages are going to get plugged and things are going to get better? What?
Absolutely. So, I have in fact mentioned about about the bumpy road to Kohima.
Yes.
Even from Dimapur to Kohima, forget about Kyumsan. The
Yeah.
road is very bad. But then, if you look at the experience of the transformation in Arunachal, where in a span of just 5 years, I have experienced myself going to the eastern part of Arunachal. I remember that I have traveled in a ferry where men, cattle, and cars would be loaded onto the same ferry, and it could take 1 hour to cross from one bank of Brahmaputra to the other. And now it's a breeze after the Bogeybill Bridge, and then there's a Sadia Bridge, and so on. And if you go to eastern Arunachal today, or you go to the western side, you go to Tawang, the road is so good. In the eastern side, if you travel, you'll feel you are in Europe. I'm sure if that transformation, which is being actually done through the National Highway Infrastructure Development Corporation, the same effort will see the transformation of Nagaland. Nagaland has its own set of challenges, but I'm sure that there will be a political resolution to those challenges soon enough, and we'll see the same change and transformation which Arunachal has witnessed. The same will come to Nagaland.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kundra, for joining us today. I urge our viewers to get a copy of this book. If you want to get a very holistic and a wonderful understanding of the Northeast, and do subscribe to The Print and leave a comment or your feedback under this video. I'm sure Mr. Kundra would love to read them. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.